get to our expert guest. Steve Moore joins the show now, Distinguished Fellow in Economics at the Heritage Foundation. Steve, thank you for being with us today. Wanted to get your thoughts on this jobs report. What do you think?
Well, I think Larry Kudlow nailed it. When I was on Fox News, when the number came out, the headline number is 210,000, new jobs created. And I told, Maria Bartiromo on the show, oh, gee, that's a, good jobs report. And then you peel back the onion and you find actually it was a very bad jobs report. There's two surveys that are done. It's not, I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but one of them showed a big, gigantic job loss. And that's consistent with a lot of the layoffs that are being announced and so on. And then it is true that, a lot of people dropped out of the workforce. We want people to be working, not, and by the way, a lot of people are taking disability now, and some people deservedly, but there's a lot of fraud in the disability program, which is becoming kind of the new welfare. And the other thing that's really interesting, I don't know if Larry touched on this in that interview, but we had more people taking second jobs than people taking first jobs.
Oh, wow.
And that means that, people are really having to take on a second, or I even know people who have three jobs now, to be able to make ends meet. So, I think the economy is certainly stronger than it was last year when we were talking, because the inflation rate has come down and interest rates have come down. That's a good thing. And we've gotten a little bit more growth in the economy. But, boy, I don't see any reason to celebrate this jobs report right now. And, I'm worried because, we're borrowing now almost $2 trillion a year at the federal level. That's just an outrage.
Yeah. I was looking at a report, I think it was from Axios possibly, that was talking about the spending bill that Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, has agreed upon in Congress, and Schumer and Johnson were going back and forth trying to explain away. They said that there were some cuts to, I think it was non-VA, non-defense related spending. So they were championing some cuts that were made. I'm sure they're not cuts to the degree that you, Steve Moore, would like to see right now. But I'm wondering if you think that the bloated spending that Congress, in Republican hands and Democrat hands, have found themselves doing in the last few years, is that the trajectory we're on? Is it because of the overspending within Congress?
Well, the overspending is an enormous problem, and it's getting worse and worse. And, now they have a budget deal that was just announced on yesterday. I think, in the grand scheme of things, from the Republican side of the aisle, it's probably about as good as you can get. My feeling is if you want to get rid of this enormous, trillions of dollars of debt we're borrowing every year, if you want to restore the economy and you want to get, the budget even somewhere close to being balanced again, you've got to get rid of Joe Biden.
Yeah.
This isn't complicated. Joe Biden is the most financially irresponsible president our country has ever had, at least in my and your lifetime. And so I want the focus this November to be on, do we really think we can afford 4 more years of this? I think it would be, a very harrowing experience to continue on this path, because at some point the whole thing is going to collapse.
You serve as a Trump economic advisor. What is the top priority in a Trump administration, should he win re-election in November? What is the top priority for him when it comes to the economy?
Well, he said, in one of his interviews recently, when he was asked the first thing he was going to do, it's going to get back to American oil and gas and coal development in this country and using our energy resources. And I thought that was a smart answer, because that's a layup, right? That's easy. I mean, I would bet, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, I bet 90% of your listeners would agree with that.
Yeah.
We throw gas and coal from the United States and from Texas and Oklahoma and West Virginia. We don't want to get it from Russia and Iran and Venezuela. So that is something that would, by the way, help our economy a lot too, because then think of all the jobs we could be creating, Annie, if we were drilling 2 or 3 million more barrels a day here. Think of what it would mean for tax payments. Those companies will pay taxes. Instead of, companies paying Russian taxes, we'll have American companies paying American taxes, and it'll be good for our national security. So that'll be a top priority. The other thing, we need to do is rescind all these crazy executive orders that Biden has put in place. And Trump has told me that's one of the first things he will do. He will have a stack of papers on his desk on January 22nd, 2025, and start getting back to the Put America First agenda. Because let's face it, this is hardly a put America first agenda we have in Washington right now.
Yeah, for certain. We're speaking with Steve Moores, a distinguished fellow in economics at Heritage Foundation, also a Trump economic advisor. I want to get your thoughts on the DNC selecting Chicago, a city you're very familiar with, as the place that they're going to have their convention. I am a resident of downstate Illinois, and when I
Yeah.
think about the economic policies and the massive concerns that even Chicago residents that are very much so traditionally Democrats have with that city, specifically right now, their mayor, the governor, the whole thing. What do you think it says for the Democrats to say, we're taking our show to Chicago?
Well, as you know, I'm from Chicago, and one of my early memories, political memories in my life, when I was 8 years old, was when Chicago held the convention in 1968. And of course, that led to, you had riots going on outside of the Coliseum where they were having the convention, and it was a total disaster for the Democrats. I love Chicago. I think it's a great city. I think it's being ruined by the politicians. And it's an example of, unfortunately, Chicago is an example, as is St. Louis, as is Oakland, as is San Francisco, and so many other cities, of what happens when you let progressives run the place. And Chicago has a Marxist mayor right now who is just doing great damage to the city. You have to worry about crime. You just even walking down the streets in Chicago now. And so, I hope they can keep the peace there and keep people safe. But my gosh, Chicago's really faltered a lot in the last 10 years.
Yeah, well, much like the country, if it were put into the hands of some strong, solid America First leadership, it could be restored to greatness pretty quickly, I think. And
No, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Every time I meet with President Trump, he's got his game face on. He is so focused. And I don't know how he stays focused. They want to put him in jail for 582 years or something like that. Did you see now they're trying to take him off the ballot in all these states? These are the people who, can you believe these people are the same people? Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, and therefore we're not going to let people. We're not going to let him be on the ballot.
Yeah.
Gee, that sounds like a threat to democracy.
The only policy point that Joe Biden has stated in his campaigns in his throughout this administration to beat or to win in 2024 is that he's not Donald Trump. You'd imagine with years of experience as a president, you'd be running on what you've done, and it's just once again fear Trump, and they think that's a winning strategy.
Look, Trump is a very polarizing figure. I love the guy. A lot of people don't like him and won't vote for him. So it could work, but I don't think with this lousy economy that people are going to be focusing on personality as much as they are on policy. I'm very confident that if Trump wins, and I put the odds a little bit with Trump right now, I think we could really see another American renaissance. I think we could just get look at the border. What a disgrace that is. And two or 3 years ago, we were on the way to getting the border, under control. And now look at it today. And I find it so humorous that all these big city mayors say, oh, gosh, what are we going to do about these migrants coming in? It's like, you're the ones who said you wanted to be a sanctuary city. Yeah. And now you're complaining to us?
A perfect example of a political statement that is an absolute failure when it comes to policy.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. And now it's so typical of, liberal leftists. They like, oh, we care about people. We want to be a sanctuary city. Okay. Then they complain that Texas is sending them the migrants that they said they wanted.
Yeah, you asked for it. Got what you asked for. Steve Moore, we appreciate you. Happy New Year to you. Thank you for being here with us. We're always grateful for your expertise.
You too. Thank you, Annie.
Yep. Take care. Bye-bye. Distinguished Fellow in Economics at Heritage Foundation, Trump economic advisor as well. Great to have his conversation and input here on the show each week.